In Alaska, the land doesn't just feel endless, it feels watchful. Miles of wilderness, long empty roads, towns cut off by snow and silence. People come here chasing work, escape, or a second chance, but some are swallowed without warning. No struggle, no goodbye, just a sudden absence, and questions the wilderness never answers. Let's uncover 5 creepiest missing person cases from Alaska that defy explanation. Story 1. On a cold October night in Anchorage, Alaska, the city was quiet, wrapped in darkness and early winter air. Inside a modest home near the trailside loop, a young woman sent a few late-night messages, struggling with emotions she couldn't quiet. By morning, she would be gone, leaving behind a silent room, an unmade bed, and a trail that would fade into the wilderness without explanation. Jael Tiara Hamblen was born on July 28, 1994, in Washington State. She spent the first year of her life in foster care before eventually being raised in Alaska. Growing up, Jael faced developmental challenges due to fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which affected her learning and social development. Despite those struggles, her family described her as warm, emotional, and deeply loving, especially toward her young son. Becoming a mother gave Jael a sense of purpose. According to those closest to her, she was trying to stabilize her life, make better choices, and build something steady for her child. She lived in Anchorage with a roommate and often went by the names Sasha or Tiara. At the time of her disappearance, she was 20 years old. On October 11, 2014, Jael went out to dinner with her roommate, Kendra Estrada. They returned home before 10 p.m. That night, Jael seemed upset, emotionally shaken after being rejected by someone she had feelings for. Later in the early morning hours, she sent a text message to a male friend saying she was crying and wanted to get together. Another message was sent just after 3 a.m. Those messages would be the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with her. The next morning, her roommate texted her around 10:30 a.m. with no response. By noon, she checked Jael's room. The bed was unmade, and Jael was gone. At first, it didn't seem alarming, but as the hours passed, her phone went straight to voicemail. Jael never returned. 3 days later, on October 14th, she was officially reported missing. Her vehicle was still parked outside the home. Her purse and phone were gone, and her infant son was left behind. Investigators discovered that Jael's phone had stopped receiving messages entirely, suggesting it had been turned off or died shortly after her last texts. Months later, in March 2015, hikers made a disturbing discovery. Jael's purse was found buried in snow along a remote trail in Chugiak, miles from where she had last been seen. Inside were her phone and social security card. Police believed she had not placed the purse there herself. She disliked hiking, and the freezing temperatures would have made travel difficult that night. No signs of struggle were found, no witnesses came forward, no confirmed sightings followed. Authorities classified her case as endangered missing, later treating it as a possible homicide, but no arrests were made. For Jael's family, the disappearance has been unbearable. They insist she would never have willingly abandoned her son, the center of her world. Her mother eventually gained custody of the child, raising him with the painful absence of answers. Over the years, the family has continued to speak out, hoping someone, somewhere, knows what happened. Vigils have been held, tips have been followed, but the silence remains. What happened in the hours after her final message? And who, if anyone, knows why Jael never came home? Story 2. On a warm summer evening in Alaska, music drifted through the trees as crowds gathered for a small-town festival tucked between mountains and forest. Laughter echoed through the fairgrounds in Girdwood, but as night fell, one woman vanished without a trace. No struggle, no witnesses, just an empty space where someone should have been. Erin Marie Gilbert was born on May 4, 1971, and raised in Everett, Washington. Creative and thoughtful, she loved writing and dreamed of becoming a novelist. After high school, she lived briefly in Baltimore and later in San Francisco, where she worked as a model. In 1994, Erin moved to Alaska to live with her older sister and brother-in-law near Anchorage. She worked as a nanny and was known as responsible, independent, and close to her family. Friends described her as warm, adventurous, and hopeful about the future. She had plans to attend cosmetology school and settle into a new chapter of her life. At 24, Erin had lived in Alaska for only about a year when she disappeared. On July 1, 1995, Erin went on a first date with a man named David Combs, whom she had met days earlier at a bar in Anchorage. The two drove south to the Girdwood Forest Fair, a popular summer festival known for music, food, and art. They arrived around 4 p.m. and were last seen together at the beer garden around 6 p.m. Erin was wearing a black leather jacket, a black and white shirt, black jeans, and mountain boots. According to Combs, when they returned to his car, the battery was dead. He claimed he left Erin waiting while he walked to a nearby friend's house for help. He said he walked for nearly 2 hours but couldn't find the house. When he returned, Erin was gone. Combs stated he believed she had gone back to the fair. He was able to start the car and search the fairgrounds until about 1 a.m., but never found her. The next morning, he called Erin's sister to ask if she had returned home. She hadn't. Erin's family immediately went to Girdwood and searched the fairgrounds and nearby woods. Her name was announced over loudspeakers. When she didn't appear, Alaska State Troopers launched a large-scale search using helicopters, dogs, and rescue teams. Nothing was found. No clothing, no belongings, no sign of a struggle. Investigators noted the unusual nature of her disappearance. Erin was unfamiliar with the area and unlikely to wander alone into the woods. She had no reason to leave without contacting her family. Her wallet and identification were never recovered. Over the years, authorities have stated that they cannot confirm foul play, but they also cannot rule it out. There was no crime scene, no physical evidence, and no witnesses who saw Erin after 6 p.m. that evening. Her date was never named a suspect, and he declined to speak publicly about the case. For Erin's family, the uncertainty has never faded. Her sister has spent decades raising awareness, distributing flyers, and keeping Erin's name alive in hopes someone will finally come forward. She wouldn't just disappear, her family has said. Someone knows something. Each year, the Girdwood Forest Fair continues, a painful reminder of the night Erin vanished. Despite renewed attention and a reward offered for information, her case remains cold. Did Erin leave the fairgrounds on her own, or with someone she trusted? And what happened during the hours no one can account for? Story 3. On a quiet summer evening in rural Alaska, a woman stepped out of her home and vanished into the fading light. No screams were heard, no signs of struggle were found, just a trail that ended at a lonely roadside phone. And a life that seemed to dissolve into the wilderness without explanation. Sandra Lee, Sandy Davis, was 38 years old when she disappeared. Born in 1935, she was a devoted mother of 2 and a trained nurse. Friends described her as caring, emotional, and deeply attached to her family. She had previously lived in California and Utah, where she felt more connected and fulfilled. In the summer of 1974, Sandy and her family moved to Chugiak, Alaska, a remote area north of Anchorage. The move proved difficult. She struggled with isolation, had no vehicle, no phone, and few connections. Letters to friends later revealed her unhappiness, referring to her life in Alaska as a sad tale of woe. By August, her marriage had deteriorated. After 15 years together, her husband asked for a divorce. Though heartbroken, Sandy tried to hold herself together for her children. On August 30th, 1974, Sandy signed the divorce papers. That evening, she told relatives she was thinking of leaving Alaska, possibly returning to California or Utah. Though granted custody of her daughters, she expressed doubt and emotional exhaustion. Around 7 p.m., Sandy became visibly upset. Crying, she walked out of the family's trailer while her husband and children stayed behind watching television. They believed she was heading down the road to use a pay phone, something she had done the night before. She left with no money, no identification, and no extra clothing. She never returned. When morning came and Sandy still hadn't come home, her husband reported her missing. Search teams, dogs, and volunteers scoured the surrounding land. Tracking dogs followed Sandy's scent from the trailer to the roadside payphone and then lost it. Investigators couldn't determine whether the trail ended naturally or if she had entered a vehicle. A handwritten note was later discovered in the home. In it, Sandy apologized for the failure of her marriage and asked her husband to care for their children and raise them in church. The note was undated and did not explicitly express suicidal intent. Sandy had spoken of starting over. In 1974, disappearing without digital records was easier. However, she left behind her children, money, and identification, and never contacted anyone again. While the note raised concerns, nobody was ever found. Extensive searches turned up nothing, making this explanation uncertain. Sandy was vulnerable, emotional, and alone near a highway. Investigators considered the possibility that she encountered someone who offered help or harm. However, no witnesses ever came forward. Her husband was briefly considered a suspect, but passed a polygraph and was eventually cleared. Despite years of investigation, no definitive answers emerged. For Sandy's family, the pain never faded. Her children grew up without knowing what happened to their mother. Her loved ones continue to believe that someone, somewhere, knows the truth. Decades later, her disappearance remains one of Alaska's oldest unresolved missing person cases, a quiet mystery lost in time, waiting for someone to speak. Did Sandy leave voluntarily, or did someone intercept her on that dark roadside? And if she did walk away, why did she never reach out again? Story 4. On a gray October morning in Alaska, a small plane lifted into the sky and vanished into one of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. What began as a routine political flight soon became one of the most baffling disappearances in American history. A case that would leave behind no wreckage, no answers, and a mystery that still echoes more than 50 years later. Nicholas Begich was Alaska's only U.S. congressman in 1972. At just 40 years old, he was a rising political figure with a growing national profile. Traveling with him was House Majority Leader Hale Boggs of Louisiana, a powerful lawmaker and member of the Warren Commission that investigated President Kennedy's assassination. Boggs, 58, was deeply influential in American politics and had recently drawn attention for openly criticizing the FBI and its leadership. He had come to Alaska to support Begich's re-election campaign. Also on board were Russell Brown, Begich's aide, and veteran pilot Don Johns, an experienced bush pilot familiar with Alaska's demanding terrain. On October 16, 1972, the four men boarded a twin-engine Cessna 310 in Anchorage, bound for Juneau. The flight was scheduled to cross rugged mountains, glaciers, and open water, an area known for sudden weather changes. Shortly after takeoff, the pilot radioed in a routine flight update. It would be the last transmission ever received. The aircraft never arrived in Juneau. By the following day, alarm spread quickly. At noon on October 17th, Congressman Tip O'Neill addressed the House of Representatives, announcing the plane was missing. Within hours, the largest search and rescue effort in U.S. history was underway. Over 40 military aircraft, 50 civilian planes, and thousands of personnel searched more than 325,000 square miles of wilderness. After 39 days, the search was suspended. Not a single piece of wreckage was found. Investigators faced an impossible task. No distress signal had been received, no debris washed ashore, no emergency locator beacon was ever detected. The National Transportation Safety Board concluded there was insufficient evidence to determine a cause. The weather that day was poor, with low visibility, turbulence, and icing conditions, all dangerous for small aircraft. One theory suggested the plane crashed into mountainous terrain or icy waters, where wreckage could remain hidden indefinitely. Another theory focused on mechanical failure or pilot error. A more controversial theory emerged decades later: sabotage. Some pointed to Boggs' political influence, his criticism of federal agencies, and his role in major national investigations. However, no evidence has ever confirmed foul play. Despite extensive searches, technological advances, and renewed investigations, the aircraft has never been located. The disappearance devastated families and reshaped lives. Hale Boggs was declared legally dead in December 1972. His wife, Lindy Boggs, later won his congressional seat and went on to serve nearly 2 decades in Congress. Nick Begich's family also endured years of uncertainty. His son would later follow in his political footsteps, carrying forward a legacy left unresolved. For decades, loved ones have lived with unanswered questions. No gravesite, no final explanation, only silence. Even today, the case remains open in the public imagination, often cited as one of America's greatest aviation mysteries. Did the plane succumb to Alaska's unforgiving weather, or was something else at play? And if answers still exist, are they buried in ice or lost forever in the sky? Story 5. In the summer of 2001, a quiet stretch of Alaska wilderness became the final known location of a man who seemed to vanish without a trace. His vehicle sat abandoned near the edge of Chugiak State Park. His belongings were left behind, and the people last seen with him were never identified. What happened to Thomas Nuzzi remains one of Alaska's most unsettling, unsolved disappearances. Thomas Anthony Nuzzi was born on January 1, 1949. A registered nurse by profession, he lived an unconventional but steady life. Rather than settling in one place, Thomas worked short-term medical contracts across Alaska, staying in hotels and renting storage units for his belongings. He had lived in Alaska for 7 years and was known to be reliable, independent, and private. Coworkers described him as dependable and punctual, the kind of person who never missed a shift without notice. He had no known enemies, no permanent address, and no known financial troubles. At the time of his disappearance, Thomas was 52 years old and staying at a Super 8 motel in Anchorage while preparing for a new work assignment in Bethel. Thomas was last seen on June 18, 2001. At 9:46 p.m., surveillance footage captured him inside a gas station near the motel. He purchased cigarettes, 2 lighters, chips, and a soda. items that seemed out of character as he did not smoke. Standing beside him in the video was a thin, dark-haired woman no one recognized. That same night, multiple witnesses reported seeing a man and woman attempting to break into Thomas's red 1997 Jeep Cherokee. The man was described as tall, thin, and missing several teeth. The woman matched the figure seen in the gas station video. On June 19th, a motel housekeeper knocked on Thomas's door. A woman answered. Inside, a man was seen lying on the bed. Neither matched Thomas's description. The pair was later asked to leave. Thomas never showed up for work the next day. On June 21st, co-workers reported him missing. Days later, his Jeep was found abandoned at the Alpenglow parking lot near Chugiak State Park. The keys were still inside. A search of the surrounding wilderness lasted 3 days, but turned up nothing. Thomas's nephew, Stephen Reeves, traveled to Anchorage and began investigating on his own. Inside Thomas's storage unit, he found his wallet, identification, credit cards, cell phone, and personal belongings. One item was missing: Thomas's .38 caliber handgun. Surveillance footage confirmed Thomas had been with the unidentified woman the night before he vanished. Phone records revealed calls to motels, pagers, and a halfway house, none of which led to answers. Despite multiple reports of the same man and woman entering Thomas's room and vehicle, neither individual was ever identified. Police did not publicly name any suspects. No official cause was determined. Theories ranged from voluntary disappearance to suicide to foul play. Some believed Thomas may have walked into the wilderness intentionally. Others pointed to the mysterious couple and the missing firearm as signs of something more sinister. Thomas's nephew worked tirelessly to uncover answers, retracing his uncle's final days and urging police to investigate further, but the case stalled. Nobody was ever found. No arrests were made. No explanation was given. For Thomas's family, the uncertainty has never ended. Without answers, there has been no closure. Only unanswered questions and a trail that simply disappears into the Alaskan wilderness. Did Thomas walk into the wild by choice, or was he led there by someone else? And if the truth still exists, is it buried in the forest or with those who vanished after him? Some disappearances leave behind evidence. Others leave only silence. Across Alaska's vast wilderness and quiet towns, 5 lives vanished under circumstances that were never fully explained. No final answers, no clear endings, just fragments of moments, unanswered questions, and families left waiting for a truth that never came. Time moves on, seasons change, but the absence remains. And somewhere between what is known and what was lost, their stories still linger. This is Vanished Stories, where the missing are never forgotten.